What do you get when you cross a Canadian diesel mechanic and an American sloppy mechanic?
We're going to put
You
flex.
get twin, two-stage, Borg-Warner, turboed, junkyard, LS motor to beat up on the dyno. Alright guys, so now that the bullshit theatrics are out of the way and the clickbaiting is gone, what we have here is I had Deboss Garage, Rich himself, contact me, and he was like, hey, I'm a sloppy diesel mechanic, you're a sloppy American mechanic, messes with LS motors, we got an LS motor, we'd like to screw around, I have some diesel turbos here laying in my private stock that I'd like to test out and see how they do anyway. Would you be interested in, doing some consultation? Let me know what I can do, what I can't do, what I should buy. Just point me in the right direction. And I said, sure, absolutely. What can I do? And he's like, well, I'd love to put this on an engine dyno and see what these turbos can do. Maybe even shoot for the hot rod record or, just bust the motor all over the place. Whatever happens, happens. I said, man, I'm all for that. So we went through a few things, and I said, obviously the easiest thing there is whatever those turbos are is just let me know the measurements if you have rough ones, and we can figure out what their power capability is based off of physical size of the turbo, like the compressor and the turbine, basically. And then I told him which plugs to buy, what things to do, and then I said if you get a set of 80 pounders, we can make 1,000 flywheel. And if you have a computer and a stock harness, I can definitely tune that. I certainly tune a bunch of stock computer cars. It won't be hard to do, so bring that stuff. And he's like, yeah, I got a P59. And we summarized that. And he's like, I got a wire harness. We should be good to go. He wanted to see if we could get enough power to break the motor, which I doubted. I mean, you need some seriously big turbos. Like Hot Rod had twin S475s on a 6-liter. They're massive, so we didn't have anything that big. So I said it might be a far stretch, but, we'll see what happens. And he ended up bringing everything. So he got 80 pounders. And then if we were going to be able to stretch it far enough to blow it up, I'm like, if you want to really see the power capability, you could get a set of 210s and put at least 3, 400 to 450 LPH pumps in your fuel cell, and you'll be set. And then we'll be, we won't be missing anything. So we set up a day, and Rich had posted about this. It's funny. We got a day all ironed out with Andy, and then what happened was he had jury duty or something else, and we had to cancel the day. And both of us were pretty bummed about that, and we're like, well, he's like, I guess I'll get the motor in there, and we'll just bring it down and tune it on my friend's all-wheel drive dyno. I was going to set up a day where I could do that. And we're like, okay, that's about it. He even made an update video where, pretty much figured it wasn't going to happen. And he calls me a week later, and he's like, hey, Andy's back. We can schedule everything. It's all going to work out. It'll be awesome. So this was exciting, obviously. So we scrambled and got everything together, and he had obviously already set it up to go on the dyno, so he wasn't wasting all of that time and effort. So I set up the time to meet him there and brought a bunch of shit with me, like wiring and spare things that I thought we would use. And lo and behold, we used almost every piece of what we had and more. There was Rich's guy was filming, so a lot of this will be on their video. It'll be hilarious to see. We had to fix quite a few things. I found a bunch of problems. I mean, I'm sure that's why he asked me to help out, seeing I think this is their first swing at some turbo LS stuff, so they just wanted me to go over everything. We found 30 pounds worth of spring in the wastegates, and he was missing the map sensor wiring and plug, so we had to scavenge that. Luckily, the guys at Andy Jensen's had a leftover truck or van harness. We were able to steal the inlet temp sensor and a coolant temp sensor and some wiring, and I brought a 3-bar map. I said I would bring that. I used a bunch of my relays to run the fuel pumps. Just a lot of messing around until we got it going. And then it had a heavy miss in the beginning, and we found a broken spark plug, and one of the coils was bad, so it was down 2 cylinders. And it was hilarious. I made this OBD2 port that stretched almost out of the dyno room. You can see it hanging from the ceiling. in some of the videos, and then my HP tuners cable plugged in around the doorways into the dyno room. It was just, it was funny. It was a classic mess. And then Andy was like, I bet this thing doesn't even run. You know, this thing is ridiculous. And we got it going, figured out all the misses, and ended up cranking out about an easy 650 flywheel. And then the turbos really did not want to go anymore. And on pump fuel with the 80s, we pushed it to almost 700 flywheel. It made like 695, 698 a few times. And that was really leaning on it. Like I put 20 degrees of timing in it up top just to see if it would go over 700 or break. And it didn't break, and it didn't go over 700. But man, I'm like, whoa. Like I said to Andy, I'm like, I'm surprised it didn't nick a piston or something. So yeah, and they decided, you know, they would quit with that and just put it in the car and obviously race it. And we had plenty of fun and spent hours there getting everything ready and figured out. So I'm really looking forward to all the video that their guy captured. I'm terrible with names. I remember the one guy's name, was it Aaron and Stefan and Rich. So they were awesome to meet, and he just drove it down in the back of his Tahoe, and we got everything sorted, and it was lots of fun. And I hope they get it together and bring it down, and we can throw it on the chassis dyno if they want to or need to at that point. And I definitely wouldn't mind helping them out in the future, obviously, with some sort of consultation or tuning or whatever else. But I will slam up a bunch of dyno pull videos here for you guys to check out, and that's about it. Everything else worked out. Nothing broke, surprisingly, and that's it. Okay, so that's what we call a proof of concept pass, with the 2 cylinders misfiring and a bunch of other issues, and it made like 250 horsepower lifting early. Okay, and this next one here, pretty much same thing, making no boost. That's why we investigated the wastegates next. And you can also hear it misfiring every now and then, like at least a deep one when he loads it, it's just like blah. This was a funny moment because the turbo on the right was like stuck. It wasn't spinning at all, and he's trying to move it and it wouldn't move. And just for fun, I ran in and just rooched the thing back and forth real hard, and then it started spinning nice and smooth and free. So we all just laughed about it and went back to dyno pulls. So there was a miss, and it was a pig down low. You can hear it, but in an effort to move quickly, we added boost. So we went to approximately 12 to 14 pounds, because that's what I like to see, is the 14 and 14, and see how the motor does. So we got 14 pounds of boost, and you could hear this steady miss now that the boost pressure was up. And that's when we investigated the plugs and found the other coil and straightened everything out and trimmed fuel and picked up like 200 horsepower on fuel alone. And this is a bad misfire pass, and coming up is clean ones right after this one. Now, listen to the difference here after we got rid of 2 dead cylinders and cleaned up the fueling quite a bit. This sounds like an entirely different engine and makes high 600s now. And also, since we are on pump gas and we have no real inlet air temp sensor, I am checking how hot the intercooler pipe is, just guessing, since we're making some power, to see how hot it is. And it's doing pretty good. And then what we do after this is we hook up the smaller turbos, and what happens is they build boost, and then they open a bypass, and then it feeds the small turbo and the large turbo. So we wanted to see, which I was doubtful if this would work, actually, and they proved me wrong. It worked great. I mean, it works in a diesel application, but I didn't think it would work that great in the gasoline application, where it delivered 154 extra foot-pounds at 3,000 RPM by lighting off the smaller turbo and then going to the sequential, or not sequential, but second stage turbo. Worked really well. Now, listen carefully here. Something really interesting happens. We hook up the gates to the top that do the 2-stage, and Andy goes to roll into this thing at 3,000, and it wants to actually blow through the dyno. It doesn't have enough load down low, so he had to recompensate for how much torque it was actually delivering down low because of that 2-stage small turbos down low. He actually lifts there and completely changes the ramp rate for the load down low to compensate for the extra torque. And here's just 2 more hits for your viewing pleasure.